She was a virgin who lost a dare and ended up naked in a billionaire's bed. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. She had never imagined that a simple dare could change her life forever. Emily was a woman of routine, quiet ambition, and the deep longing to break free from the constraints of her modest life. Growing up in a small town, she was used to taking care of herself. No one else could help her now. The job interview she was heading to felt like her last shot, her last chance to prove to herself that she could make it. The sky was gray and the streets wet as she walked briskly toward the cafe. Her second-hand dress clung to her, the seams slightly frayed, her shoes scuffed from too many miles. She couldn't help but wish she could look like the women she saw walking past, polished, poised, effortless. But she didn't have that luxury. She had promised her best friend Jenny that she'd go on this blind date, and here she was, walking into the restaurant, her heart racing. She quickly scanned the room. Table 7, she muttered to herself, her fingers gripping the strap of her worn handbag. She glanced at her phone again. This was the place, all right. Her breath hitched, and she froze. There, sitting alone at the back of the room, was a man who could have easily been mistaken for a millionaire. He was tall, with dark, neatly styled hair, and he wore a perfectly tailored suit. She almost didn't want to approach, but Jenny had said he was shy. He must be Kevin. She gathered herself, took a deep breath, and walked over, offering him her brightest smile. Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emily. The man looked up, startled. He blinked a couple of times, his lips parting in confusion. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, he managed, hi Emily, his voice soft, unsure. She smiled and slid into the chair across from him, oblivious to the awkwardness of the situation. I know this is weird, right? Blind dates are always strange. Jenny told me you were a bit reserved, so don't worry, I can talk enough for the both of us. He opened his mouth as if to correct her, but hesitated. His business associate had just texted to cancel their meeting, and something about Emily's genuine smile made him pause. She wasn't like the women he usually met, who had perfected the art of small talk. There was something real about her. He smiled faintly, the corners of his lips lifting. Right, blind dates are something else. She laughed nervously, taking a sip of water. Tell me about it. Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy with work. You know work. What do you do? He asked, genuinely curious. Emily paused, glancing down at her hands before she answered. I'm a waitress. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, most of them anyway. She gave a half-hearted laugh. What about you? He hesitated. I work in tech. Tech? She said, her eyes lighting up. Like coding and apps and stuff? He nodded, a little amused by her enthusiasm. Something like that. He leaned back in his chair, studying her quietly. The conversation flowed easier than he expected, the tension easing between them. Emily shared stories about her shifts at the diner, the constant struggle to pay rent, and her dream of someday opening her own art studio. You're not what I expected, she said, her tone thoughtful. What do you mean? He asked, leaning in slightly. She smiled shyly. Jenny said you were reserved, but you're easy to talk to. He chuckled softly. You're easy to talk to too. Emily beamed at the compliment. It was nice to talk to someone who didn't seem to judge her for her life or her dreams. She was about to ask more about his work when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. Hey Emily, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin. Her heart sank. She looked back at him, her face turning bright red. You're not Kevin, are you? She whispered, barely able to speak the words. His smile faltered for just a second, then he sighed, his eyes softening. No, I'm not. Emily's stomach twisted with embarrassment. Oh my God, she muttered, standing up abruptly. I'm so sorry, I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing. Without waiting for him to respond, she grabbed her coat and bolted for the door, her face flaming with humiliation. Liam Parker watched her leave, a strange feeling stirring in his chest. He had intended to tell her the truth right away, but something about her had stopped him. She had been so open, so honest, and it had felt refreshing. He couldn't help but wonder if he would ever see her again. And for some reason, the thought of never seeing her again bothered him more than he cared to admit. The next day, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the man she had accidentally mistaken for Kevin. She replayed the whole scene in her mind, each detail flashing like a movie reel. She felt embarrassed, but there was something about him, his calmness, his understanding, the way he didn't make her feel foolish, even though she was. What if she never saw him again? What if he was just a guy she would never get the chance to know? She sighed as she sat at the small diner where she worked. The familiar hum of the coffee machine and the clinking of dishes offered some comfort, but it didn't make the feeling in her chest go away. The truth was, the night before had been different, special in a way she couldn't quite explain. She had met someone who didn't just see her as a waitress. He hadn't judged her, and that was rare. She wiped down the counter absently, her mind drifting back to the conversation they'd had. When her phone buzzed, she snapped back to reality. The message was from an unknown number. It was from him. "Hi Emily, this is Liam. I'm the guy from last night. I know it was a bit of a mess, but I was hoping we could meet for coffee sometime. Let me know if you're interested." Emily stared at the screen for a long time. Could this really be happening? After all, it was just a mistake, a harmless mix-up. She was probably just another face to him. But there was something about his message that felt different. He wasn't just saying it out of obligation. She bit her lip, hesitated, and then typed back, "Coffee. Sounds good." The message sent before she could second-guess herself. Her heart raced as she put her phone down, the excitement building in her chest. What was she doing? What if this was all just a game to him? What if he only saw her as another date in a long list of others? No, she told herself. You deserve more than that. You deserve someone who sees you for who you are. Later that afternoon, Emily arrived at the cafe where she was meeting Liam. The sun was just starting to set, casting a warm, golden light over the city. She took a deep breath and walked inside. It was a cozy place, with small wooden tables and soft jazz playing in the background. Liam was already there, sitting at a corner table, his head buried in his phone. He looked up as she approached, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. A small smile spread across his face, and Emily felt a flutter in her stomach. "Hi," she said, sitting down. "I didn't think you'd actually text me." He laughed softly. "I wasn't sure if I would either, but I figured it was worth a shot." They both paused for a moment, as if trying to figure out how to start. Emily shifted in her seat, feeling the familiar, nerves creep up. "So what do you do, Liam? Besides sitting at the wrong table, of course." He grinned. "I work in tech." "I know, sounds boring, right?" She raised an eyebrow. "Tech? Are you one of those coding geniuses?" He chuckled. "Not exactly. I'm more on the business side of things. Startups, investments, that kind of thing." "Sounds impressive," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I'm just a waitress. Not nearly as exciting." "Hey, don't sell yourself short. That's a job too. And honestly, it's more real than anything I deal with." Emily blinked, surprised by his words. "Really? Yeah, there's something authentic about it. You get to connect with people, see their lives up close." He leaned forward, his eyes serious for a moment. "I think I could learn a lot from someone like you." She laughed, her cheeks flushing. "Well, I'm not sure what you'd learn from me, but I'm happy to help if you need any advice on how to deal with rude customers." He smiled, but his expression softened. "Maybe, but I'm more interested in learning what makes people like you tick. What makes you so different?" His words caught her off guard, and she felt a little uneasy. "Different?" she repeated. "How so?" He hesitated for a moment, then spoke carefully. "You're not like the people I usually meet. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just real." Emily didn't know how to respond to that. She had spent so long trying to hide the parts of her life that felt messy and imperfect. Hearing him say that she was real, it felt both freeing and terrifying. The waiter arrived with their coffee, and they both fell into a comfortable silence for a moment, sipping their drinks. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something important was happening. Was he seeing her for who she really was? Or was this just another game? As they continued to talk, the conversation flowed more easily. She shared more about her dreams of owning an art studio, and he talked about his work in the tech world, explaining how he wanted to make a difference. By the time they finished their coffee, the sun had set, and the cafe was quieting down. "I'm glad we met," Liam said, standing up. "I'm really glad you gave me the chance to talk to you." Emily smiled, feeling a warm, unexpected connection with him. "Me too. she said. Maybe we can do this again sometime? I'd like that, he said, his eyes lighting up. As she walked out of the cafe and into the cool night air, Emily felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just a date. It felt like the beginning of something more. But what? She couldn't be sure yet. All she knew was that, for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was truly seen. The next few days passed in a blur, and Emily couldn't help but replay her coffee date with Liam over and over in her mind. It had been different from any date she had been on before. There was no pretense, no expectation, just two people talking, getting to know each other. She found herself thinking about him more than she expected. Was he just being polite, or did he actually feel something? She had no idea, but she couldn't deny the pull she felt when she saw him again. Liam had texted her a couple of times, each message polite but warm, asking if she'd like to hang out again, to get to know each other better. It was nothing extravagant, just an offer to spend time together, but it meant something. For someone like him, someone used to a life of luxury and expectations, taking the time to reach out felt significant. Emily had agreed to meet him again, this time at a small art gallery downtown. She was nervous, but excited. Art had always been her escape, her passion, and to be able to share it with someone who might appreciate it made her heart race. As she walked into the gallery, the dim lighting and the quiet hum of conversation set the tone for a more intimate setting. She spotted Liam near the front, standing in front of a painting. He was dressed casually today, in a well-fitted jacket and dark jeans, looking just as handsome as before. When he saw her, his face lit up, and he waved. "Hey, Emily," he said with a smile, his voice warm. "I'm glad you could make it." "I wouldn't miss it," she replied, feeling a nervous flutter in her chest. They walked around the gallery together, discussing the artwork on the walls. Emily felt comfortable with him, more so than she had expected. It was strange how easy it was to talk to him. They shared their thoughts on the pieces, and Liam even asked her questions about her own art, something she had never expected from someone so successful and polished. It made her feel like she mattered, like her opinions were valued. After a while, they found themselves in front of a large abstract piece that Emily had always loved. "What do you think?" Liam asked, turning to her. Emily paused, studying the painting. It was chaotic, with splashes of color all over the canvas, but somehow it all made sense. "I think it's beautiful," she said slowly. "It's like life, you know? Messy, unpredictable, but it comes together in the end." Liam nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "I get that. Sometimes life is just like that." They stood there for a few moments, lost in the painting. Emily felt a shift in the air, a quiet connection that seemed to deepen with each passing second. But before she could say anything else, Liam turned to her with a small smile. "I really like spending time with you, Emily. You're different from anyone I've met." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know how to respond. She had been trying to keep her emotions in check, but something about him made it impossible. He wasn't like the men she was used to. He wasn't interested in her for her looks, or because she was someone's daughter, or because of what she could give him. He seemed genuinely interested in who she was as a person. "I like spending time with you too," she said, her voice soft. She didn't want to admit it, but the truth was, she was starting to feel something for him. It scared her, but it also made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. Liam reached out and gently took her hand, his touch warm. "I know this might sound crazy," he said, his voice low, "but I've been thinking a lot about you." Emily looked up at him, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean?" He smiled, a little sheepish. "I don't know. There's something about you. I've never met anyone who makes me feel the way you do." Her heart pounded in her chest, and for a moment, all she could do was stare at him. He had never said anything like that before, and it sent a rush of warmth through her. She didn't know what to say, didn't know how to react to his words. But before she could speak, Liam gently pulled her toward him and kissed her. It was soft at first, almost tentative, as if he was waiting for her to pull away. But she didn't. She kissed him back, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself feel something real, something that had been missing for far too long. When they pulled away, both of them were breathing a little faster, their hearts beating in sync. Emily felt a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in months. She wasn't just someone who served coffee or cleaned up messes. She was someone worthy of being seen, of being loved. And for the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could have something more. Liam smiled at her, his expression tender. "I think we should see where this goes," he said softly. Emily nodded, feeling a wave of emotion wash over her. She didn't know where this would lead, but she was ready to find out. And with him, she felt like anything was possible. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Emily. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam and the kiss they had shared. Every time her phone buzzed, she found herself hoping it was him. They had been texting back and forth, and each message seemed to draw them closer. But as much as she liked him, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of doubt. Was this real? Or was she just another one of the women he entertained in his lavish world? He was a millionaire, after all, and she was just a waitress. Emily tried to push those thoughts aside, but they lingered in the back of her mind. She didn't want to be another person in his life who was easily replaced when something new came along. Yet every time they spent time together, he made her feel seen, heard, and valued in a way no one ever had. Liam had invited her to a charity gala that weekend, and although she was nervous about the world he came from, she agreed. It was a formal event, one that seemed worlds apart from the diner where she spent most of her days. She had no idea what to expect, but part of her was excited to see Liam in his element. The night of the gala arrived, and Emily stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment, staring at the dress she had borrowed from her friend Jenny. It wasn't fancy, but it was the best she could do. She adjusted the straps nervously, wishing she could afford something more elegant. She had never been to an event like this before, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong. But as she walked into the venue, the bright lights and the hum of conversation made her feel like she was part of something bigger. Liam was already there, standing across the room, looking every bit the part of the successful billionaire. He wore a black tuxedo, his dark hair styled neatly, and his posture was confident. He looked so out of place in her world, but at that moment, he looked at her with the same warmth he always did, and she felt an unexpected sense of relief. He walked over to her, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "You look amazing," he said, his voice sincere. Emily blushed, her heart racing. "I feel a little out of place, honestly," she admitted, glancing around at the well-dressed crowd. Liam smiled, taking her hand gently. "You belong here just as much as anyone else." The night went by in a blur of conversation, laughter, and clinking glasses. Emily was surprised by how comfortable she felt in Liam's world, and more importantly, how comfortable she felt with him. He made her feel like she was part of something real, something meaningful. As they danced together later in the evening, the music swirled around them, and for a moment, it felt like the entire room faded away. It was just the two of them, caught up in the moment, their connection deepening with every step. Emily was lost in the feeling of being held, of being wanted, and she couldn't remember the last time she had felt this way. But as the night wore on, her doubts began to creep back in. The reality of their worlds, their differences, loomed large in her mind. What would happen when the night was over? Would he still see her the same way, or would she be nothing more than a fleeting memory? After the gala, Liam drove her home in his sleek black car. The silence in the car was comfortable, but Emily couldn't shake the nervous feeling in her stomach. When they reached her apartment, she hesitated before getting out of the car. "I had a really great time tonight," she said, her voice soft. Liam smiled, but there was a hint of something else in his eyes. "I did too," he said. "You're incredible, Emily." She looked at him, searching his expression for any sign of what he was really thinking. He leaned over and kissed her again, gently this time, as if reassuring her that he wasn't just saying it to be polite. It was real. She could feel it in the way he kissed her, in the way his hands lingered on her shoulders. But as they pulled away, Emily felt a knot tighten in her chest. She had never been good at letting her guard down. She had spent so long protecting herself, guarding her heart, and now she wasn't sure how to handle these feelings. "I'm not used to this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can just let go and trust this." Liam's expression softened, his eyes searching hers. "You don't have to let go all at once," he said gently. "I'm not going anywhere, Emily. We'll take this one step at a time." She nodded, though the uncertainty still lingered. As she stepped out of the car and watched him drive away, she couldn't help but wonder if she was making a mistake. But deep down, she knew one thing for sure. Liam had become someone important to her, and no matter how much she tried to push it away, she couldn't ignore the pull she felt toward him. The following days after the gala were filled with a mixture of excitement and doubt for Emily. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam and the way he made her feel, special, seen, and valued. But despite the warmth he showed her, there was still a part of her that wondered if this was all just too good to be true. Liam was a billionaire, and she was a waitress struggling to get by. The differences between their worlds felt so vast, and yet when she was with him, everything seemed to fade away. It was like he didn't see her as just a waitress. He saw her as Emily, the woman she was, and that was something she hadn't experienced in a long time. However, the uncertainty crept in again when Liam invited her to dinner at his place. Emily hadn't been to his luxurious penthouse before. She had only seen glimpses of his world at the gala, but now, she was about to step into it fully. She felt nervous, unsure of what to wear, what to say, or how to behave in such an extravagant setting. She spent the afternoon getting ready, choosing a simple yet elegant dress that Jenny had lent her. It wasn't expensive, but it made her feel good about herself. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, trying to calm the nerves that had settled deep in her stomach. Was this a date? Or was it just dinner? She didn't know. But part of her felt like it was a turning point, one way or another. When she arrived at his penthouse, her heart skipped a beat. The building was massive, with tall windows offering an incredible view of the city. She had never seen anything like it before. It was exactly what she had imagined when she thought of billionaires, luxury and opulence in every corner. Liam was waiting for her by the door, a warm smile on his face. "You made it," he said, his voice filled with relief. "I'm glad you came." Emily smiled back, but she could feel the nerves rising again. "Thanks for having me," she replied, stepping inside. The apartment was even more impressive than she had imagined. High ceilings, sleek furniture, and walls adorned with art. It felt like something out of a movie. "Do you need a drink? Or should we sit down to dinner?" Liam asked as he led her to the living room. "I'd love a drink," she said, trying to hide her nerves behind a smile. They sat together, talking casually over a glass of wine. As they chatted, the conversation flowed easily, and Emily found herself relaxing. Liam was just as kind and charming as he had been before, and the tension she had been feeling seemed to melt away. After a while, Liam stood up and gestured toward the dining room. "Dinner's ready," he said. They moved to the table, and Emily couldn't help but marvel at the meal he had prepared. It was exquisite, something she would never have imagined a man like him making himself. As they ate, the conversation turned more personal. Liam asked about her dreams, her life before becoming a waitress, and what she wanted for the future. Emily shared stories about her childhood, her passion for art, and her dream of one day owning her own studio. "You're an artist?" Liam asked, genuinely intrigued. "I am," she said, her face lighting up. "I've always loved to draw. It's been my escape, my way of coping with everything." Liam nodded, his eyes softening. "I think that's incredible. Art has a way of making everything feel possible." She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest at his words. They continued talking late into the evening, their conversation flowing like it had at the cafe. But there was something different now. It wasn't just small talk. It felt like they were opening up to each other in ways they hadn't before. After dinner, they moved to the balcony, where the city lights stretched out before them, like a sea of stars. "It's beautiful up here," Emily said softly, taking in the view. "It is," Liam agreed, his gaze fixed on her. "But I think it's even more beautiful when you're here with me." Emily felt a flutter in her chest at his words. She didn't know how to respond, so she just smiled. Liam reached out, taking her hand in his. "I know this is moving fast," he said, his voice low, "but I don't want to keep pretending that this isn't real. What I feel for you is real, Emily, and I don't want to let it slip away." Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she looked at him. She hadn't expected him to say something like that, but hearing it made her heart swell with emotions she had buried for so long. Could it really be possible? Could this really be the start of something that was more than just a fleeting connection? "I don't know what this means yet," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I know I want to figure it out with you." Liam smiled, his thumb gently brushing over her knuckles. "Then let's figure it out together," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she had something real, something worth fighting for. She didn't know what the future would hold, but at that moment, she felt like anything was possible. And with Liam, maybe she wasn't so far away from her dreams after all. The following weeks felt like a dream for Emily. Everything was happening so fast, yet at the same time, It felt like it was meant to be. She spent more time with Liam, and every moment with him seemed to reinforce how different he was from anyone she had known. He wasn't just a billionaire with a powerful company. He was thoughtful, kind, and he made her feel like she was more than just a waitress. But despite everything that was happening between them, Emily couldn't help but feel the weight of her own insecurities. She had always believed that someone like Liam could never truly be interested in someone like her. She wasn't used to the world he moved in, the people he associated with, and it terrified her. Would he still want her when the reality of their differences set in? One afternoon, as she was sitting in the small cafe where she worked, Emily received a message from Liam. It was simple: "Meet me tonight at 7 p.m. I want to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't unusual for him to ask her to meet, but the tone of his message felt different. What did he want to talk about? She couldn't shake the feeling that something important was coming. That evening, Emily arrived at the elegant restaurant Liam had chosen. She was nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she walked through the door. She had dressed carefully, but no matter how hard she tried to convince herself, the same doubts crept back into her mind. Was this it? Was he going to tell her that this was over, that it was just a fling for him, and she was not the one he truly wanted? When she saw him sitting at the table, his usual confident demeanor made her pause. He looked up as she approached, a warm smile spreading across his face, and for a moment, the weight in her chest seemed to lift. "You look amazing," he said, his voice full of warmth. Emily smiled nervously, sitting down across from him. "Thanks, Liam. You said you wanted to talk. What's going on?" Liam took a deep breath, his expression becoming serious for a moment. "Emily, I've been thinking a lot about us. And I know we've been moving quickly, but I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to be open with you, and I want you to know exactly where I stand." Emily's heart raced as she listened, her mind swirling with possibilities. Was he about to tell her that he wanted to slow things down, or worse, end things altogether? "I've been falling for you," Liam continued, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I know we come from different worlds, and I know this isn't easy for you, but I can't ignore what I feel. I want you in my life, Emily, not just for a moment, but for the long haul." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She had been so afraid of this moment, but now that it was here, it felt different. She didn't know what to say. "Liam, she started, but he raised a hand gently to stop her. "Let me finish," he said softly. "I know. This is all new, and I don't want to rush you into anything. I just want you to know that I'm serious about us. I don't want to pretend anymore. This isn't just a fling for me." Emily sat back in her chair, her mind racing. His words echoed in her mind. Serious, not a fling. It was everything she had wanted to hear, but also everything she was scared of. She had never allowed herself to fully believe that something like this could happen for her. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've never been in a relationship like this. I've always had to protect myself, protect my heart, because I didn't think someone like you would ever want someone like me." Liam reached across the table, taking her hand gently in his. "Emily, I don't care about your past, your job, or where you come from. What matters is who you are now, and what we have together. I want to build something real with you, and I want you to trust that I'm not going anywhere." Emily's heart swelled with emotion as she looked into his eyes. She had never felt so seen, so understood. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe in something more, something lasting. "I don't know if I'm ready," she said softly, "but I want to try. I want to be with you, Liam." He smiled, his eyes bright with hope. "That's all I want. To take it one step at a time, together." The rest of the dinner passed in a haze of conversation, laughter, and newfound hope. As they left the restaurant, Liam pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her in a warm embrace. Emily felt safe, secure in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to find out. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was someone who was worthy of love, of happiness, and of a future with Liam. And maybe, just maybe, that was all she needed to believe in her own worth. As the weeks passed, Emily found herself falling deeper into a life she never imagined for herself. With Liam by her side, everything seemed to fall into place. They spent more time together, growing closer with every conversation, every shared laugh. Liam was patient, always gentle, and he seemed to understand her in ways she didn't expect. He wasn't just a billionaire CEO. He was the person who made her feel like she mattered, like she was enough. Despite their obvious differences in social status, it felt like they were on the same page, and for the first time, Emily didn't feel like she had to hide who she was. Still, there were moments when doubt crept into her mind. She had always been the person who kept her guard up, who didn't trust easily. Even though Liam had proven to be kind, thoughtful, and sincere, Emily couldn't help but wonder if he was just being nice, if he truly saw her as someone he could build a life with, or if she was just a passing interest in his busy world. She had spent so long taking care of herself and relying on no one but herself, and now she was expected to let someone in. It felt like a big leap, one she wasn't sure she was ready for. But Liam never wavered. He continued to reassure her, showing her in small, quiet ways that he was in this for the long haul. He made the effort to understand her fears, to listen when she needed to talk, and to be present even when she was unsure of herself. One evening, as they were walking through the park near her apartment, Emily stopped and turned to him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "Liam, I'm scared," she admitted, her voice soft. "Scared of what?" he asked, his brow furrowing with concern. "Scared that I'm not enough for you," she confessed, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't have what you have. I don't live in your world. I don't know if I can ever truly fit in there." Liam took her hands in his gaze steady and unwavering. "Emily, you don't have to fit into my world," he said, his voice calm and comforting. "I'm not asking you to change who you are. What matters to me is the person you are right now, the person who makes me feel like I can be myself. You're more than enough. You always have been." His words hit her harder than she expected. For the first time, Emily felt like she could truly believe that maybe, just maybe, she was deserving of the love he was offering. They stood there for a long moment, their hands intertwined, the sounds of the city around them fading into the background. In that moment, Emily realized that her fears, her doubts, they were all self-imposed. She had been the one holding herself back, afraid of the unknown. But with Liam, she felt like she could let go and trust. Trust in him, trust in herself. The following week, Liam invited her to an event for his company. It was a gathering of the top investors and executives in the tech world, a world she knew little about, but one that Liam was deeply immersed in. Emily was nervous, unsure of how she would fit in. It was a far cry from the casual dinners and simple dates they had been on. This was a big deal, and she couldn't help but feel out of place. Liam noticed her unease as soon as they arrived at the event. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, placing a reassuring hand on her back. She nodded, trying to mask her nerves. "Yeah, just a little out of my element." He smiled softly, his eyes full of warmth. "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." As the evening progressed, Emily found herself slowly relaxing. Liam introduced her to a few people, and although the conversations were a little more formal than she was used to, she didn't feel judged or out of place. She realized that she was the one holding herself back, letting her insecurities dictate how she interacted with the world around her. As they sat at a table, enjoying dinner, Emily couldn't help but notice how Liam seemed to shine in this environment. He was confident, poised, and people listened to him. He was exactly the kind of man who could have anything he wanted, and yet, he had chosen her. The thought made her heart swell with both happiness and disbelief. She never imagined someone like him could truly want someone like her. But as she looked at him, across the table, smiling at her with those soft, sincere eyes, she knew that this was real. He wasn't just pretending. He wanted her, and for the first time, Emily allowed herself to believe it. Later that night, as they walked back to his car, Liam pulled her close, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. "I'm proud of you," he said softly. "You were amazing tonight." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," she said, her voice sincere. "I think I'm starting to believe in this." Liam stopped walking and turned her to face him. He cupped her face gently in his hands. "I want you to know that I'm here for the long haul, Emily," he said, his voice low and steady. "No matter what happens, no matter where we go, I'm not going anywhere." Emily's heart swelled with emotion as she looked up at him. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to face it. With Liam, she felt like she could be herself, completely and unapologetically, and that was all she needed. Emily's life had changed in ways she hadn't thought possible. Just a few months ago, she was stuck in her small world, waiting tables and barely scraping by, unsure of where her life was headed. Now, here she was, standing next to Liam, a man who had shown her a kind of love and attention she never thought she deserved. But as she looked at him, she felt a flutter of anxiety in her chest. Things were moving so quickly between them, and she had moments where she couldn't help but wonder if it was all real. Was she truly enough for him, or was this just a fleeting connection for someone like him? Liam was the kind of man who had everything: wealth, power, success. And she was just a girl who had never even been to a place like this. The thought made her nervous, but every time she looked at him, her heart softened and the doubts started to fade away. One evening, as they sat in his penthouse, Emily felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She was with Liam, the man who had shown her the kind of love that was real and unwavering. She had never felt so cherished, and yet, she still feared the day he would realize that he could do better. But she knew that as long as she stayed present, as long as she kept trusting in what they were building together, she wouldn't have to worry about that. Liam, sensing her anxiety, reached out and gently took her hand in his. "Emily," he said softly, his eyes filled with concern. "What's on your mind? You've been quiet tonight." Emily hesitated, unsure of how to express the swirl of emotions inside her. Sometimes I feel like I'm not enough for you. You're so amazing, Liam, and I'm just a waitress who had nothing before I met you." He smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Emily, you're more than enough for me. You've always been enough. You've shown me a world that I never thought I needed to see, and I've learned more from you than anyone else. What you do doesn't define you. Who you are, the person I see when I look at you, that's what matters." His words hit her deeply, making her heart swell. She had spent so long questioning her worth, but Liam had a way of making her believe in herself. It was more than just words. It was the way he looked at her, the way he made her feel like she was the most important person in the world. "I just don't want to let you down," she said softly, her voice filled with vulnerability. "You're not going to let me down," Liam reassured her, squeezing her hand. "We're in this together. You're not just someone I'm with because it's convenient or easy. I'm with you because you make me better. You make my life brighter. And I don't ever want to lose that." Emily's chest tightened at his words, and for the first time, she allowed herself to fully accept them. Maybe she didn't need to prove her worth to him. Maybe, just maybe, she was enough as she was. The following weeks were filled with quiet moments and shared experiences that deepened their bond. Liam invited Emily to more events, but each time, she felt more comfortable in his world. She wasn't trying to fit in anymore. She was just being herself, and he loved her for it. She found herself opening up in ways she had never done before, letting her guard down little by little. The more she trusted Liam, the more she realized that her fears were just that, fears. They didn't have to control her anymore. One day, Liam surprised her with a trip to the beach. He knew how much she loved the ocean, and he wanted to share that with her. The two of them walked along the shoreline, their feet sinking into the sand as the waves crashed gently against the shore. It was a quiet day, just the two of them, no distractions, no pressures. They sat on the sand, watching the sunset together, and Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. It was in these moments, the simple, quiet ones, that she realized how much she had changed. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into Liam's life months ago. She had grown, not just because of him, but because of the way he made her feel. She felt valued, loved, and most importantly, she felt at home. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Liam turned to her, his expression soft and full of emotion. "Emily," he said, his voice low, "I know we've had our doubts, our fears, but I want you to know that you're everything I've ever wanted. You're not just a part of my life, you are my life." Emily's heart swelled, and tears welled in her eyes as she looked at him. "I never thought I could have something like this," she whispered. "But with you, I feel like I can have everything I've ever wanted." Liam smiled, pulling her into his arms. "And we'll have it together, Emily. I promise you that." In that moment, Emily knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they could face them together. The life she had once doubted was now the life she was living, and it was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. With Liam by her side, she didn't just feel loved. She felt like she had finally found her place in the world. It had been a few months since that day on the beach, and Emily couldn't help but feel like her life had transformed in ways she never could have predicted. She had gone from a woman who barely believed in love, who thought she didn't deserve happiness, to someone who was learning to trust again, to love again, and to be loved in return. Liam had been by her side every step of the way, showing her the kind of love that was patient, kind, and unwavering. They had faced challenges, yes, but each challenge had only brought them closer, and she had come to realize that love wasn't just about the good moments. It was about being there for each other. When times got tough, when doubts crept in, and when life threw obstacles their way, Liam had shown her that love was not about perfection, but about building something real, something lasting. One afternoon, as Emily sat in the small studio apartment she had rented after deciding to pursue her dream of opening her own art gallery, she received a call from Liam. "Hey." His voice was warm and comforting as always. "I've been thinking about something." Emily smiled as she answered. "What's on your mind?" "I've been thinking about us," he continued. "About everything we've been through. And I realized that I don't want to wait any longer." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice a little nervous. "I mean, I want to spend the rest of my life with you," Liam said. There was a pause, and Emily's heart was racing. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Will you marry me, Emily?" Her breath caught in her throat. She had known for some time that Liam was the one, but hearing those words, hearing him ask her to spend forever with him, took her by surprise. She couldn't believe it. She had come so far from that girl who doubted her worth, from the girl who thought she could never be loved. And now, here she was, being offered a future with the man who made her feel like she was enough. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." Liam let out a breath of relief, and Emily could almost hear the smile in his voice. "I love you," he said softly. "I love you too," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. "I never thought I'd find someone like you." "I never thought I'd find someone like you either," Liam said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You've changed my life in ways I can't even describe. I'm so grateful for you, for everything we've built together." Emily wiped away a tear, her heart full. She had never felt more loved, more seen, more cherished than she did in that moment. Over the next few weeks, Emily and Liam began to plan their wedding. It wasn't a grand affair, not something flashy or extravagant, but it was everything they both wanted: simple, intimate, and full of love. They married in a small ceremony, at a park, surrounded by the people who meant the most to them. As they exchanged vows, Emily felt the weight of everything she had been through. The doubts, the fears, the insecurities, all melt away. She had found the one person who truly understood her, who saw her for who she really was, and loved her with all his heart. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Emily realized that this was just the beginning. Their journey together was far from over, but she knew that with Liam by her side, they could face anything. There was no more doubt, no more fear, only love. Liam had shown her what it meant to trust, to take a chance on love, and to believe in herself. And in return, Emily had shown him that life wasn't about the things you could buy or the status you held. It was about the connections you made, the people you loved, and the moments you shared. Together, they had built a life filled with love, trust, and hope. A life that neither of them could have ever imagined on their own. As they walked away from the ceremony, hand in hand, Emily couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had found her place in the world, and it was right beside Liam. She didn't need to be anyone other than who she was. And for the first time in her life, she truly felt like she was enough. The future was bright, and she was ready to face it with Liam, her partner, her love, and her best friend. Together, they had everything they needed to build the life they had always dreamed of.